If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are at on this planet. And welcome to Neely Fuller's Counter Racist Code Show. I am one of the co-hosts, Mr. Bobby, and with me, as usual, is Gate. And we are delighted that you have joined us today, being the 9th of September, 2025. Gate has planned a good show today, and we are particularly delighted to have your participation. So let me get some house items out of the way. You can help support and promote the show by hitting the like button and the share button. Number 2, now to watch the show live, go to YouTube at Produce Justice, Facebook and Instagram at Produce Justice, Neely Fuller Jr., and you can also watch the show live at producejustice.com. A replay of the show is available immediately on all platforms. To get on the show to share your thoughts, click the link in the feed and you'll be prompted on what to do next. You can also find the instructions on the website at producejustice.com. And feel free to read a passage from one of Mr. Fuller's books on air for discussion. Now, to contact us off air, send your questions to or comments to contact@producejustice.com. And importantly, to order books, go to producejustice.com. One of the things that Gate and I were talking about, and we usually do not talk too much before the show, is that you have made the show so much better as we are evolving into wherever we are going to. By your participation, by your asking questions, by your getting into the chat like we did last week, it was beautiful to have your opinions, and then we commented on that, and then Gate has whatever he has to say, and I have whatever I have to say. It is also your show, and you're helping to keep Mr. Fuller's legacy alive. So your participation is vitally important to the success to keep that alive. Number 3, listen, maybe for the next 2 weeks, I'm not sure, but I was speaking with Gate today to inform him that I'm due to have some eye surgery on the 16th and the 23rd. Now, I may not be here for the 23rd. I definitely won't be here for the 16th of September, but keep that in mind. Now, to help Gate out if he doesn't go to a show, if you call in, maybe you could be a quasi guest host. You never know how that might work. But call in, get in the chat, participate, and we can keep this thing alive. All right, and one more thing, last thing, to get the books that Mr. Fuller has produced, and you will hear cuts, I think, from Mr. Fuller, or excerpts from whatever Mr. Fuller has had to say. You can go to producejustice.com, and you can order all the books for yourself or your friends or whoever to keep this alive. Okay, I think that's all the housekeeping items that I have to do. Now, let me introduce Mr. Gate. Mr. Gate, how are you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning. Thank you very much, Bobby, for that great introduction and great housekeeping. This is Neely Fuller's Counter Racist Code Show, and I am happy to be here and happy to speak with you this morning. Like Mr. Fuller says, I'm still learning. We are all still learning. As long as we're under this system of racism, we are all still learning. And like Mr. Bobby said, go to the website. You can listen to the show right on the homepage. You can also visit us on our social media platforms and also check out the books. Mr. Fuller wrote 3 books, 3 very erudite, informative code books. Wrote the first book in 1984. That was the original United Compensatory Independent Code book. Then he wrote one in 2010. That was the Word Guide. Then he came back in 2016 and expanded the original edition. Mr. Fuller was determined for us to be on code. Now, today we got a couple of interesting topics. We're going to talk about victims. If you look at Mr. Fuller's works, you listen to his words, he uses that word victim quite often. And there's a slight bit of, I don't want to say controversy, but there's quite a bit of discussion about whether victim is the right term. Does it apply to everyone? So I'm going to break this word victim down today. What is a victim? Who is a victim? If you're a billionaire, are you a victim? If you are Oprah or Barack Obama, what's the billionaire tech guy? Robert Smith, are they victims? Does victimhood ever end? Are you a victim from the day you're born to the day you die? Let's talk about this victim today. So we're going to try to get Mr. Fuller's words up also on the screen and see what he has to say about it. And if that doesn't work, we'll read from the book. I'm going to start out by talking about the word, how Mr. Fuller described victim in the Word Guide. And if you don't have the Word Guide, I'm going to help you out here. It's on page 406 of the Word Guide. Like I said, in 2010, Mr. Fuller wrote a book called the Word Guide. So he took some common words, some not so common words that are part of the lexicon of the victims, and he put together a nice book. And in 406 of that book, he said, victims use this word mostly to apply to the non-white people in the known universe during the existence of white supremacy, also racism. Also use the word victim to apply to any person who is directly or indirectly mistreated in regards to any area of activity of existence. Study the ways that others use the word victim. During the existence of white supremacy, do not use the term victim of racism to apply to any white person. If a white person is mistreated by any person, white or non-white, during the existence of white supremacy, say that person is the victim of mistreatment by the person who did the mistreatment. Now, he also said during the reason for this, during the existence of white supremacy, race is racism, racism is white supremacy. All non-white people are victims of white supremacy. Now, he didn't make any exceptions. He didn't say some, the ones who are downtrodden, the ones who are marginalized, the ones who are been beat up or called the N-word, the ones who are victim of institutional racism or systemic racism. He said all non-white people are victims of white supremacy. Now, that's where some people, where there's a divergence of thought. Now, I'm going to tell you why I'm going to put on my therapist cap this morning, which I am wont to do every now and then, and help us understand why this delineation may occur, why we have this dichotomy, why we have some people over here saying, I am not a victim. And we have other people over here who are saying they're victims from the day they're born to the day they die. Well, when we break it down, you might get a better understanding why we have this dissension among non-white people on who is a victim And we know darn well the racists, they don't think anybody's a victim. They think it's all made up. Get over it, move on. Now they can fly Confederate flags and mistreat people and put their own history out there. But when it comes to victims, they say move on, forget about it. Your history doesn't matter. So let me break this down. And I encourage you to go to, we have the link down in the feed where you can join the conversation. You can come on if you have a passage you like to quote from Mr. Fuller. If you want to speak about victims, whether you're a victim, if you want to say, articulate that you're not a victim, Mr. Fuller says under the acronym VGQ, under victim guaranteed qualifications, you can actually proclaim that you are not a victim. Now he may not agree with you. Let me break this down in my own. Let me give you Gates' take on this. There is victimization and there is victimhood. It should be no debate on whether or not non-white people in the known universe are victims. Because by definition, a victim is a person who's been harmed, exploited, oppressed, or unfairly treated. That's fact. That is absolute. There is no debate about that. So sometimes victimization and victimhood has been conflated. Whereas victimization is objective. It refers to a factual occurrence. It's not up to somebody's opinion. It's not up for debate. If somebody robbed you, you're a victim. Now you might go and become a millionaire later on, but that still means the fact that you were robbed, you were a victim. Now victimhood, on the other hand, is more subjective. Now, if you want to wallow in the fact that you were robbed, if you're going to say life will never be the same, I can't get myself up and get together, I'm having night sweats, I can't move on, then we're talking about victimhood. So when some people say, I am not a victim, what they may mean, and I'm kind of helping you along here, I'm not putting words in your mouth, they may mean I am not a product of victimhood. And therein lies the difference. Because victimhood, you can choose whether or not you remain subject under the auspices if it determines your next move or how you live your life. That is victimhood. So when somebody says Oprah is not a victim, according to Mr. Fuller, Oprah is a victim. When Oprah came up, before she got her billions, she was under the same system that you and I are under today. And to some certain aspects, she's still under it, but not impacted the same as everyone else. We don't want to make the exception. We don't make the rule of confusing exceptions with norms. So, I say, what say you? Mr. Bobby, go ahead and let me hear you.
I feel like this before I give the take. What do people, I know there are two people in the chat. Have they had anything to say yet?
Let's see here. We have Sack 7. He says, the practice by white supremacists and racists of using substantial numbers of non-white people as buffers, blockers, and barriers between themselves and other non-white people. I think Mr. Fuller may have called that racial showcasing. Also, I think what Sack 7 also said earlier, he asked this question, which is a very good question. He says, so many people deny non-white, so many non-white people deny that they are victims of white supremacy. And they deny that white supremacy produces non-white victims. Now, I will say there are many people who vehemently will deny that they are victims.
I said, that's okay that they feel that way. That's their VGQ. It's okay. That's the beautiful thing about the code that Mr. Fuller has presented to us is that you're able to give your opinion because as a victim, you are qualified. Even if you don't think you are a victim, you're still qualified. Which brings me to this. Because I act in a live and act and speak in a codified manner, I take what Mr. Fuller said at the beginning of every program. If you don't understand, and he says racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. I take the word as today as victim and put it in that place. If you don't understand victim or victimization, what it is and how it works, everything else is going to confuse you. The point is you have to stay codified on what in or on whatever we are speaking about so that you can help dismantle the system. You mentioned of white supremacy. You mentioned Oprah Winfrey. She might be a billionaire, but she's still a victim in the system because it's not predicated on how much money you have. It is a system, a worldwide system, and that is why it must be dismantled. Okay?
Mr. Bobby, you're exactly right. And I think we're going to get quite a few people harping on the fact. We look at the exceptionalism of Oprah, and many of the racists would use her as an example that there is no longer any racism. And once again, what they're doing, they're confusing exceptions with norms and ignoring the fact that systemic barriers produce unequal opportunities rather than absolute impossibilities. And so, as Door of EI or EL says, Oprah is still a victim. Let me put the words up there on the screen. Said Oprah is still a victim when she was barred from a Paris high-end shopping store. That was a reminder to her and others that she is still a victim. Now, I'm going to go back to this distinction. Even though she is still a victim, that does not make her a resident of victimhood. So I'm spending some time on that today, because I do think that sometimes there is some confusion about the difference between victimization and victimhood. I'm going to drill on this a little bit. So when we leave here today, I'm putting on my professor hat so that we come here on this show. Let me just make you quickly aware of how this show works. Mr. Bobby and I, we are not here to replace Mr. Fuller. Matter of fact, we're here to do the exact opposite. We're here to make his memory indelible. We're here to make his legacy move forward. Now, what we also do, we take some of Mr. Fuller's concepts. One of his beliefs was, don't follow the person, follow the logic. We also, Mr. Fuller said, all victims have a right to voice their opinion and to speak about how they themselves would address this system of white supremacy and racism. I'm going to tell you that my approach, I adore Mr. Fuller. I admire the fact he wrote these 3 great books. As his producer for 5 years, I was listening to him for 2 hours every day for 5 years on Tuesdays, doing his radio show on Blog Talk. And so one thing that I picked up from him was that You don't have to agree with everything I say. He said that on many occasions. He said his book is not the law. Use the parts that you can use. And if you're not a victim, then it's probably not going to be for you. If you don't consider yourself a victim, it may not be for you. So what I'm going to do today under my Gates take is, before you say this book is not for you, before you say I'm not a victim, I'm doing okay, before you say, look, I have my tech company, I have my law firm, I have my CPA degree, I have my MD, before you say I'm doing okay, so don't come to me with that victim talk. I want you to understand that there is no dichotomy. There is no space between what Mr. Fuller is saying and the fact that you could still be a victim in spite of all of that. Victimization is not subjective. You are a victim or you are not. If somebody robs you, you are a victim. No matter how many times you may get the money back, you may go on to become a billionaire, you are still a victim. Now, how you handle that victimization. So before you say, look, forget this talk about victim being a victim. I'm saying you can still adhere to what Mr. Fuller said, that you are a victim if you're a non-white person. I'm saying that you can say, I am a victim, but I do not live in victimhood. That's how I have rationalized, because I choose not to live in victimhood. When I wake up in the morning, I don't look in the mirror and say, woe is me. This system is dragging me down. I don't know what to do next. The man is just really sticking it to me. Yes, he may be, but I don't accept the mindset of victimhoodology. I left the victimhood, but I'm still a victim. Because when you promote and when you espouse this fact that we are not victims, you are playing into the hands of the victimizer. But at the same time, if you walk around in this victimhood, it's going to take a psychological toll on your ability to move forward. So I'm drawing a line today between the two. Yes, you are a victim, but you don't have to live in victimhood.
Oh yeah, okay. Sat Seven says Chris Rock once called that there is a difference between being rich and having wealth. He said that Shaquille O'Neal was rich, but the one that wrote his checks was wealthy, and that's true. It is true, which goes back to what I was saying earlier, even with your take. As a We have to think and be and speak codification, and this is why Mr. Fuller was prophetic in what he said. If you don't understand, and in this case, victim or victimhood, if you don't understand what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand or even think you understand will only confuse you. It is imperative that we live in that mode, so that whether we're discussing victimhood or victim or sex or whatever it is, we have to stay codified, understanding what it is that we are dealing with. Then we can begin the process of dismantling it, whatever it may be. But if you go outside of that, all you're going to have is just opinions and nothing getting done, which is what the system of racism and white supremacy wants you to do, because it is a system, worldwide system, and in every area of people activity. You have to understand that. If you don't understand it, then you will be confused and try to attack whatever it is that's in your periphery, and it's not going to work, because there are other in those other areas that are ongoing concurrently. And you cannot do that or think that way unless you think codified and began to dismantle it.
You're exactly right, brother. Let's go back to the code book for a minute. What I'm going to try to do more often on this show, and I'm really taking advice from some of the followers and callers, that we go back to the book more often. The victims of racism have two and only two choices of being, as long as they are victims. They can either continue to speak and act in support of the practice, or they can speak and act to eliminate the practice of racism. Now, what Mr. Fuller has done, he has obviously chosen the latter of the two, to speak and act against the system in an effort to eliminate it. Once again, he's using the term victims. And I'm going to say this throughout the show until somebody tells me to shut up, because the word victim is used so often in Mr. Fuller's thought, speak, and action. And I don't want anybody leaving here or listening to this show feeling that I or this show buys into a victimhood mentality. Now, this is my take. You can agree with it or not. I'm going to say that I am a victim. I'm not speaking for Mr. Bobby, but I'm going to say it whether he agrees or not. Mr. Bobby is a victim. Mr. Fuller was a victim. Oprah is a victim. Barack Obama is a victim. Michelle Obama is a victim. Robert Smith is a victim. Shaq is a victim. Michael Jordan is a victim. And there's somebody in the audience, if they just take a clip of this show and cut it right there and give it no context, they're going to say this guy's out of his mind. And that's what the racists tend to do. They take things out of context. And they like to say that we're out here crying victimhood and that we're wallowing in our self-pity. I'm here today to say that nothing could be further from the truth. I'm not going to get into the reparations discussion today, but that's the mindset that people take into reparations. They say, hey, look, you guys have done okay. You don't need to be repaired. Because I stand up and take my life forward, because I go out here and run my company and put people to work and teach students and try to make the world a better place, that does not mean I'm succumbing to the fact. I'm not saying that I'm not a victim. My dad was a sharecropper. These hands are picked cotton. I'm a victim. But that's absolute. Those are facts. What is subjective is how I decide to deal with it. I chose not to succumb to victimhood. So what I'm trying to do here is make this case that you're not at odds with Mr. Fuller when he says that we are victims. I just want you to understand that there is a difference between victimization and victimhood onto the platform. We have many comments coming in. Mr. Bobby, can you see that? Let me get you.
Yeah, Sat7 says slaves and servants to the global system of white supremacy racism. Absolutely. Absolutely. Terrence Martin says the paradox of change is recognizing that there is a problem in the first place. Whoa, how true that is. Those don't see a problem will see no reason to change. Man, you talking about something true. Yeah. Some people don't recognize that they are a victim, so they don't see it as a problem.
Now, one of the comments Mr. Fuller made on the video that I'm going to try once again is that one of the things that he said is that many of the people don't know that they are victims. And that's part of the problem. He said, if you're born in, he said, you're in a prison system. And if you are born into a system, you don't even know you're a victim because that's all you know. You have people around you who have been enslavers, who have built mountains of wealth off the backs of others. And they would turn around and say that, well, it's time to forget about that little thing called slavery. Those 100+ years of Jim Crow and racial segregation. Let's forget about all that. We're in a colorblind society now. Well, you can't use that colorblind society philosophy and say that everybody is equal when you're existing in a system that was built on inequality. So yes, you are a victim under this system. And the reason it's so pervasive and it sticks around so long is because it's layered. You have individual racism, where you're dealing with daily microaggressions. You're dealing with people using threats and violence and language. You have institutional racism, where you have somebody not hiring you, denying you opportunity. You have redlining. You have disparate. You have unequal application of the law. And then you have systemic racism. That's when you compound and combine them all together so that it creates this system. Mr. Bobby, let me get you up here. 1 second.
I was going to say, for those in relation to Terrence Martin's comment, if you don't really think that you are a victim, most of us have been taught the Pledge of Allegiance of this flag. And if you read and then recited the whole thing and you did it and didn't even think about it, but when you thought about it, you get down to the last line and it says, with liberty and justice for all. That's what it says. But when you think about it, my mind goes to the beating of Rodney King or George Floyd or the other victims, Tawana or Miss Taylor down in Louisville. When you think about it, liberty and justice for all? It is not true. It is simply not true. But if you don't think about it and do something about it, then you're still a victim. And see, some people think that this is worshiping Mr. Fuller. No, it is not. Fuller did not want that. He didn't want us to do that. He wanted you to think. Didn't he say the answer to any problems is to ask why, to ask questions. Why? And if you don't do that, then you stay in that victimhood. And that is not good. This is not Fuller worship at all. Yes, we want to hear what he has to say. And eventually one day we'll get all those technical bugs worked out so that you can hear his words. But here's the thing about that. Either we do that or we don't do that. You have a conflict on each side. Either we're doing it too much or we're not doing it enough. And that's bad.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Once again, thank everybody for tuning in. This is the Mr. Fuller's Counter Racist Code Show. This is, I'm Gate, have Mr. Bobby here with me today. We're talking about victims, a word that Mr. Fuller uses in his books and his recordings quite often. And another thing that I'm doing today is there's a couple of things I'm doing today to give you kind of a take of what this show is about, what it's not about. We're not here just to parrot Mr. Fuller verbatim on his books and speeches. Mr. Fuller asked us to use logic. I'm a logical person. I teach logic. I speak logic. And if my job was to come on here and just read Mr. Fuller's quotes for an hour, I wouldn't be here because I'm a thinking individual, and Mr. Fuller encouraged that. So what I'm trying to do, also another one of my objectives, and the reason I've taken on this role, is we do the thinking and speaking. I'm more about the action. We've got to take this knowledge. We've got to take this concepts. We've got to take this information and create some calls to action. What are we going to do? Just sit here and talk for an hour every Tuesday and then go back to the status quo? Mr. Fuller's goal was to dismantle this system. He laid out the groundwork. He laid out the code on how to do it. He said, use the parts of it that you can. You don't have to agree with everything I say. And there were some things Mr. Fuller said. I had to turn my head to one side. Well, I'm not sure I'm 100% on board with that. But there's nothing anybody can say in this world that I'm going to agree with 100% of the time. It's just not. I'm not going to. So what I'm going to do is sit here. There's enough that we agree on, but I have to apply my own logic. That's how we move forward. That's how we get some action moving. And I hope I can inspire some other people, other than just reading and talking, but to go out here and let's dismantle this system. Now, I'm going to bring up Terrence Martin.
It says what? Try explaining to a fish that he or she is in water. Very difficult. Racism, white supremacy is not rocket science. It's way more difficult to understand. That's Terrence Martin. Yeah, boy, Terrence is right on it.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Let's get Bill up here on stage. We have Bill in the green room. It's going to bring him on here and let's get his take on what we're talking about today, or anything he wants to talk about. He wants to read his passage from Mr. Fuller. He wants to comment on anything we've said. I'm going to welcome Bill to the Counter Racist Code Show, Mr. Fuller's Counter Racist Code Show. Bill, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Good morning, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Bill.
Yes. One of the points I wanted to make about the debate of victimhood or victimization is Mr. Fuller had once said that the question is whether or not a person has been mistreated. And you've probably heard him use the example. If someone stole or damaged your car, you'd call to the police and they'd possibly come to your door or come to you and ask, were you the victim of the vandalization or were you the victim of the theft? And most likely the person would answer yes. Logically, that's what happened. And so a lot of people are concerned because there is a theory in sociology, psychology about not taking on a victim mentality. And usually when you listen to the people make that explanation, they are saying not take on a victim mentality in all about everything that you deal with. Once a person believes in the system that the system of white supremacy exists, and you have an understanding that it's existing in all 9 areas, usually you come to the point of view that as far as white supremacy goes, a non-white person is a victim of white supremacy at all times, in all areas, in all places. I'm assuming that there's someone or one of the show's the audience has come in and said that they don't believe that they are a victim, or they um, don't believe that all Black people are victims. Is that the case? What we're discussing now?
That's exactly right. There have been, and we'll try to get it up on the screen again. A caller actually called in and articulated that he didn't believe that everyone was a victim. And when it's fair to say that when you ascribe to the fact that you are a victim, you're presenting this weak front that you're powerless to do anything about it.
And the key is that that is true, particularly in the instance of a non-white person. The assertion that we are making, the assertion that the code is making, that we are non-white people under a system of white supremacy. We currently do not have the power to do anything. Once we use the code to end white supremacy, we will have done what needed to be done. But currently, we are victims of that. It's just like people have been in different parts of the world, a flood victim, victim of an earthquake. It's that type of problem on the larger scale. The suggested. Go ahead, sir. I'm
Bill,
sorry.
let me give you some pushback on the powerless part. Now, individually, I think there's, like I said, I'm not a big fan of absolutes. I think life is layered, and that there are different aspects and components of just about everything, from automobile to your house to your situation. I think that you have the power to move yourself away from a victimhood mentality, and you have the power to impact how much how you can influence how you are impacted. And I think if you can rally enough wheels together, then there is a possibility that we can dismantle this system. So I wouldn't say that we are powerless. I think that we have a formidable force, and it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of people coming together. But I'm very reluctant to subscribe to the term powerless. And feel free to come back to defend your position.
Yes, and this is, as everything in the code, is a matter of semantics. However, to address another point you had earlier, this is one of the first important parts of the code, is to use a language that people agree on enough to go to the next step. So we come up with a thought that we can do it. Then you say it, and we need to say it in such a way that a critical mass of people who have the will or develop the will then go on to develop the ability and the knowledge to do it.
Hold on, Bill.
So,
Let me get Mr. Bobby in here. Don't go away. Just hang on.
Yeah. Talib, one of our loyal listeners, used AI to illustrate this point. He said that according to AI overview, the word victim comes from the Latin word victima, meaning a sacrificial animal or a person slash animal killed in a religious sacrifice. The ultimate origin of victims is uncertain, but may relate to a Proto-Indo-European root meaning to choose or to set aside as holy. The word adopted into English in the 15th century, initially referring to sacrificial animals. Before the meaning broadened to include any person or creature subjected to the harm, suffering, or death. This is good. Bill and then Talib and then the others, even in the chat room. This is good that we have this dialogue to get understanding as to what we are dealing with in this particular area. Go ahead, Gabe. Go ahead, Bill.
Bill, go ahead.
yes. And so this is the I guess the point would be, what is the point that the person is trying to make by saying we are not victims? Um, in in terms of the usage, the way it's used in the code, um, the victims have been mistreated by the system of white supremacy and by white supremacists. And usually, I've seen when people would ever ask Mr. Fuller, the question is, does white supremacy exist? Does it have victims?
Well, let me say this,
And
Bill.
and I would like to say this first, because
Sure, go ahead.
what I believe happens is that, and if I could testify, I've had this conversation, and not to not exaggerate, hundreds of times, I'm sure. And what tends to happen is that it is often easier, and usually the discussion is had with other non-white people, and sometimes, and oftentimes, it's easier to debate another non-white person over something that is, for lack of a better term, more facilitated or easy to debate over than it is to look at the white supremacists and realize the difference in power. And so, but what I found most often is that the person who you are talking to, the question is why are you talking to me? And usually it comes from the fear and frustration. The person does believe that white supremacy exists, but it feels more powerful to pick out a point and try to point out a contradiction, and then that becomes delivers the thought and the feeling that we're doing something about it.
Bill,
And
I,
so what I've found, if I could say this, please, that
sure, Bill, go ahead.
most of the time, the person you're talking to, if they're asked, does white supremacy exist? And using the codified definition, is there a system that mistreats non-white people in all areas? They will say yes, usually. Okay. And the key is to develop the logic to be able to talk with that person about that and put forth that point of view. Lastly, what I would like to say is oftentimes that is one of the a person like that's not only, but their major discrepancy in terms of semantics. But then they will leave that point and go on to give you an example of uh, white supremacists and racists mistreating non-white people. And if you were to ask them, in their example, was the non-white person mistreated and victimized? They would say yes. But then that same person will say, yeah, but I don't see myself as a victim. And they'll say across the board. And so it's just important. And in actuality, one of the responses to that is that's a point of VGQ. The only problem with it is if you were to use it in discussing it to the person, they're going to point out the word victim and try to say that they're not a victim across the board. So one of the suggestions might be to just go ahead and give the person their VGQ on the use of the word victim and continue.
Bill, that's deep. Go ahead, Miss Bobby.
Just say go ahead, because we're getting short on time here. So go ahead.
Well, Bill, what you have said is really kind of very erudite. It's very prophetic, and you define and encapsulated this discussion today. Like I say, we've been doing this show now since this revised show since Mr. Fuller parted on February 1st. We've been doing this new show since the end of February, early March. And we toss around these words. And when I don't want anybody to misunderstand the fact that I'm sitting here feeling like I'm under that because I'm a victim, I'm gonna be a shrinking violet, go into a corner and cry and pray for a better day. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that it takes I think it's a symbol of strength to say that you are a victim, but you have the strength to overcome and tackle the challenges. And not only that, you're going to tackle the system that victimized you. But to deny it, that it ever existed, I think, as Mr. Fuller said when he was talking in one of his videos, is that almost to the point that's some form of insanity. That you can't. He talked about people walking around the prison yard saying, "I'm not in prison."
Exactly.
It's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I'm looking at you. You're in prison. I'm looking at you, victims. I'm looking at the racism that you're encountering on a day-to-day basis. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the system that has been built off the backs of your labor, the wealth that now you can hardly enjoy. And then we can't point to a few exceptions and say that is the rule. Yes, many people have said it in the chat. Mr. Fuller has said it. I'm saying it. Yes, if you are a non-white person, you are a victim in ways big and small. But, and this is where I'm going to make this point for the 100th time today, that doesn't mean sit around and wallow in it. That doesn't mean, well, look, there's nothing I can do. Life is over. Let me go ahead and get in my corner and wait on handouts. Nobody's saying that at all.
No.
Nobody I know that says that. But that is what the racists, the people who are perpetuating the system, that's the narrative they would like to put out there, that we're crying victimhood. We're not. We're saying you have victimized us, but we are stronger. We're going to rise up and do well in spite of that. That's the point I'm making, that there is no dichotomy. There is no contradiction when you admit that you're a victim. Just don't live in the victimhood. That's my point. Get up, take Mr. Fuller's code and go out here and help dismantle this system, or at least minimize its impact on your daily life. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, and now this is just a suggestion. It's VGQ all the way. I think the confusing part is when you come back and say, don't live in the victimhood. Because now it makes it appear that victimhood is different from victim or being a victim or victimization. Okay. So,
well, Bill,
it could be.
They are different. They are different.
Well, that's where, and I'll even say, to me now, it becomes a slight, that's where it causes you to have to, I think, explain more, but you definitely go forward with what works for you. But
Bill,
what I would suggest,
make it simple for me, Bill. Make it simple for me. I'm still learning.
What I would say, and me too, but I've seen this one, is that I would talk about is my victimization, or how I intend to operate under victimhood of white supremacy. I would talk about how that's the first step to ending the system, realizing I, myself, not just my forefathers, not just the people who have been systemically mistreated. And that part, as you say, part of victimhood can be that you've defined how you are a victim, and that you intend on removing the label, and you're developing the will and the ability, which will bring the power. It just has not happened as of yet. So the victim of a car theft can call the authorities. They can insist that an investigation begin. You follow me? There's various options if you happen to have insurance. All of this is coming under the victimhood of a car theft. It doesn't mean you can't do anything about it, you know. And so that's what I'm saying, because when, you know, it it may be the explanation is that you're saying, um, being a victim of white supremacy does not mean you have to remain a victim. There is something you can do about it. Um, and that's all I'm saying, because when you go back and say it's different from victimhood, then you kind of have to explain victimhood as opposed to being a victim.
Okay.
And I think the point is that it is what you said earlier, is that it does not mean you cannot do anything about it. And most importantly, it's the most important thing, um, to remove the force that victimized you, is to realize it has happened. If you're in denial, I just can't find my car, you know, then that can be a problem. So, you know, that's where I say that it will cause you to possibly, or I know it put it this way, it causes me to have to explain more.
Well,
And usually I would just say, does white supremacy exist? And usually the person you're talking to does agree to that.
well, Bill, that I really like what you said, and that is strong VGQ. What I will say this, that that nuance, I think that nuance has been problematic, and even that's
Hmm.
even why I brought it up today.
Hmm.
I'm
It
gonna give it
is.
more. I'm gonna give it a tangible example. Let's just say you were denied employment because of your race. Then you're a victim of institutional racism. That is victimization. Victimhood means that even though you went out and found a better job, you went to a different company, got a better job, but you are still feeling like I can't get over this. There's this big formidable force out here that's preventing me from moving ahead, even though it may be. And I know it's still very nuanced. It's about mindset. I'm saying if you live in that mindset, you're less likely to do something about it. You're going to feel powerless to do something about it if you adopt a mindset that you're this weak and powerless victim. That does not take away from the fact that you have been victimized. I'm saying take that victimization and build strength from it, and don't use it. Don't use it as a crutch. Use that victimization as an impetus to move forward. And I tell you what, Bill, the more I explain it, like you said, the more I feel like I have to explain it more because it is very nuanced.
Yes, it's true, and that's what I'm saying, and I agree with everything you said. But the key is that either white supremacy exists or it doesn't. Either people out here stealing cars or they are not. Either my car got stolen or it did not. It doesn't mean how I have to deal with it, that I can't address it. We're assuming that you first have to realize your car was stolen. It's not that you misplaced it or forgot where it was. You see what I'm saying? Is, you
Bill,
know,
Bill, it's not like you're saying keep it simple. Keep it simple so that people can understand what the heck you're talking about.
and the key too is, I think the important part is that 9 times out of 10, when this discussion is happening, this discussion is happening around the concept of codification. Like,
Yes.
you're actually talking to a person who probably came to you or came to a forum or this forum. Do you see what I'm saying, sir?
Yeah.
About discussing white supremacy. And one of the key points, and you addressed this earlier, is that one of the first things Dr. Wilson and Mr. Fuller always used to say, people say, what can we do? And they say, first, develop the will to talk about it. You know, you had to think about it to be here or in whatever conversation or whatever you thought, and then to talk about it. And we have to develop a language in using the language we use, which is so-called English, which was developed to practice white supremacy. So we have to codify the words so that we have an understanding. Mr. Fuller used to talk about the concept that once we get the language proper, we can soar because we can communicate with each other and we understand it. And then sometimes the concept of VGQ is where you pass, you know, because you see that currently that small nuance is causing more problems than it is solving. But
You are.
usually, the important part about it is you have a willing person who you're talking to. 9 times out of 10, you would describe the person who you're speaking about that you're having the discrepancy over the definition of victim with as a person who is interested in ending white supremacy. That's the important part. That's the key to VGQ, is that usually it's a strong-willed person who has two people, more than two or more people who have developed a will. But what happens is it becomes easier to debate and quote disagree and bring in other definitions and everything. And it is it's a form of shadow boxing, but the key, and that's what I'm saying, think about it. When you're talking to that person, step back from it and say, does this person believe that white supremacy exists? And usually you will say yes. And that's where it becomes a VGQ issue. And I think it's part of the interesting part is that the label for that is victims guaranteed qualification. That same person will tell you about how they got mistreated by some white people, what happened on their job, and it's most likely true.
Well, Bill, Mr. Fuller, just the fact that he led that acronym off with the word victim.
Yes,
it amens exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
they're admitting they're a victim when they do the VGQ to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
The nuance, like I said, it could be some cases add more confusion, but it also it increases the debate, and that's what I'm trying to do today, is to get the dialogue going, apply logic, and let us know that one of the main things that I'm glad you brought out, that even though that person may not understand all the nuances between victimization and victimhood, one thing that's generally clear is that they do admit that they have been a victim of this system and that they are hell-bent on dismantling it. And that's where people come together, and that's why VGQ becomes so important. What I like to do, Bill, is to after the fact, delegate you as our co-host for the day, because you've been so insightful and added such substance to the conversation today. So welcome as our co-host on September 9th, 2025. You have been our guest co-host, and I appreciate you joining us this morning. And thank you. I hope you come back again and lend your voice to our discussions in the future. What we're going to do next time we get together, I was going to talk about it today, but Bill gave me such good feedback. We're going to talk about sports. We have the football season kicking off, and Mr. Fuller talked about sports under his entertainment. And just in a nutshell, what he's saying, that the white supremacists are happy to confuse us with comfort, to take our energies away from fighting injustice. And they're glad to throw things like sports and football and so forth at us to kind of, I guess, neutralize us and divert us. He didn't say don't necessarily participate. He said, but don't let these exciting games and so-called sports divert you or get you comfortable within this system. And I think that we have to keep that in mind as we were watching the game the other night between the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, and last night between Chicago and the team that they were playing. If you must watch, you have to don't be caught up into the fact that this comfort that the white supremacists are happy to give you is somehow they're giving you something. That what they're doing is to make you comfortable, to take your eyes off the struggle or the fight for justice. Mr. Bobby, any final words?
Yes. ProduceJustice.com.
Bill, any final words?
Produce justice.
All right. All right, folks. We'll see you next week. Thank you again, everybody. This show will be available on repeat by going to ProduceJustice.com. You can also get it on YouTube. Mr. Bobby is not going to be here next week. I'll determine whether I'll be back next week, without him next week or not. Just go to the website and we'll let you know if there'll be a show or a repeat of a former show. But there will be something on this channel at 9:00 on next Tuesday. So tune in. Even when we're not here, we have the message board open. The feed is, the matter of fact, the feed is really kicking what we discovered when we run repeat or rebroadcast. The feed is live. We do polls, we ask questions, we get engagement. So there's always a reason to come back here, whether we are live or whether we are running a rebroadcast. So thank you again. We're going to move out by looking at some of the very good comments coming in. I don't watch sports anymore. Ever since Kaepernick, go ahead there, brother. Football and basketball season is psychological heroin. Sports is slavery. So as we can see, there's a range of opinion about how people view sports and whether or not we should be participating in it. I know we had the situation with Kaepernick a few years ago where all this brother did was took a knee, and all of a sudden, he got blackballed by the industry, and a lot of people did step away from the sport after that. And many people never came back. Some have come back, but they're giving it the side eye, or they're doing it with a lukewarm enthusiasm. And once again, as long as you keep your eye on this system and don't get too comfortable, don't be neutralized. Don't let this drug of sports take your eye away from the fact that we do live under this system and that you are still a victim. But let's go out here and try to dismantle this system. And like Mr. Fuller said, if you get rid of this system, all the other problems of the world could be handled on your day off. All right, we're going
to see themselves or project them or understand themselves to be victims. And I know they have a right to do that, but isn't that counterproductive to the overall work and to making significant gains with solving that problem? What say you, sir?
Yes.
If
I say that I haven't been robbed, the law enforcement people show up and they say, well, somebody reported a robbery. Were you the person that reported a robbery? And I have the idea that I haven't been robbed. So I tell the law enforcement officer, it wasn't me. I didn't call you. I haven't been robbed. Nothing's been taken from me. Everything's just fine with me. So if a black person says that, ain't no such thing as white supremacy. Ain't nobody supreme over me. I do what I want to. Now, there are people who are in what we call prison, who have what you call, a lot of people will say, they have lost their minds. They will say, they walk around grinning all day, eyes bugged and grinning and saying, oh, I'm in paradise. This is happy land. This is wonderful. Everything is beautiful. Life is wonderful. And they're walking around in prison. And so the other prisoner, the cellmate, for example, says, hey, man, you're at Rikers Island. Or you are at Folsom. You're in prison. You're doing triple life. No, I'm not. I'm in paradise. This is paradise. You're looking at it all wrong. I mean, something wrong with you. I mean, the food is great. I mean, and these walls are protecting me from the animals outside. And I like it here, don't you? There's something wrong with you. See, so in answer to the question, yes. A movie, Shawshank Redemption, kind of touched on that. It's called being institutionalized. That you've been a slave so long, you don't even know that you're a slave. What is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
ourselves out to be victims or seeing ourselves as victims, isn't that making us weaker in trying to solve this problem?
Some people say it does. They say it all comes down to how it affects people. It makes me, the truth always makes me stronger about anything. And that's what I say everybody should go with. That's my opinion. That's just Neely Fuller. But people can think about it and say, no, I don't want to think that, because that does things to me that shouldn't be done. Now, a person can have that opinion. There's certain things I don't, and if the person says I'm not a victim, well, nothing that Neely Fuller says from then on should matter to them at all. In fact, they shouldn't listen to nothing that Neely Fuller says. He hasn't solved no problem. Not that I know of. So that's the answer that I give. But I say, and I have it on the cover of my book and all through everything I've written and what this program is about, that what Neely Fuller says applies to victims of the system of white supremacy, and he considers himself to be the victim of the system of white supremacy more than any other, not human being, not none of that. Victim of white supremacy. I'm more of that than I have ever been, ever. According to what? The truth.
Is it logical to always refer to the term as white supremacy, racism, white supremacy?
Yes, that's my choice. Now, if somebody wants to call it something else, according to the code, you can do that under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. You're qualified to call it anything you want to call it. But then the question is raised, why call it something else? What is the best thing to call it? That's another question. So if you have a suggestion about what to call it, I've heard people say, call it prejudice, call it bigotry. I looked at all those terms, and I decided it's best to call it what it is, because other terms can be confusing. Call it white supremacy. White people who have chosen to be supreme over non-white people in every area of activity 24/7 throughout the entire planet, and by extension the entire universe, and who have actually done that. It's not a theory, it's an actuality. I say that is because in 15 minutes or less, all they do is make the decision. We're not going to have racism anymore. And racism would disappear overnight. Black people would wake up and say, people are acting strange. What's going on? The whole world seemed like it changed last night while I was asleep. I know I couldn't have been asleep that long. Everything has changed. It would be just that fast if the white people of this planet said, hey, no more racism by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, okay? None. Zero. I mean, it'll be like it never happened. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, because white supremacy is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. I'm going to say that again. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what is white supremacy, and how it works. Everything else that you understand will only confuse you. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time.